Welcome to the Fundamental Baptist Podcast. There are many types of Baptists, but being a Baptist once meant that you were a fundamentalist. Over the years, many Baptists have strayed from the fundamentals and thus attacked those who remain true to the faith. This podcast will address the issues surrounding what it means to be a fundamental Baptist.
Somebody said, Brother House, fundamentalists are changing, aren't they? No, fundamentalists don't change. Folks quit being fundamentalists. God says when the troubles come, He said, fight. You can't fight. He said, withstand. You can't withstand. He said, stand. What does it mean to stand? He said, don't change. What? Don't change what? Number one, don't change what you believe.
Here we will reason concerning the Scriptures about the doctrines we hold dear. We believe in souls being saved, lives being changed, and Bible doctrines being strengthened by the Word of God. We believe in the local church, soul winning, missions, and everything taught in the King James Bible.
I thank God tonight for this wonderful Bible. You know, I thank God it's a perfect book, and I love the Bible. Doesn't need any addition, no correction, nothing taken from it. Thank God tonight for the Holy Bible. I like it just like it is.
We are not ashamed of being fundamental Baptists, and we want to encourage others to remain true to the Bible, their Baptist heritage, and to not change what they have been given.
You just stick with the book. You can't beat this book. Why does every generation feel that we got to change it just a little bit because our daddy did it like this and our granddaddy did it like that, and let's change it just a little bit? You change it, and things that are different are not the same. The same commit thou to faithful men.
Thank you for joining us in our discussion of what it means to be a fundamental Baptist.
Hello and welcome. My name is David Baker. Welcome to the Fundamental Baptist Podcast. Hey, we're glad that you're here today. I have a friend with me, an old friend. And we weren't close through ministry, but we followed each other, and we have some of the same type backgrounds. I'm a heretic. He's a heretic. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. But good guy. So let me tell you the part we have in common. So this is Brother Greg Ogle, been in pastor ministry. You'll hear all about that. But he was a member of the
82nd Airborne.
82nd Airborne. So when you find a brother who you have that in common, when you have knees to the breeze, they say, when you've jumped out of those perfectly good C-130s and C-141s, there's a camaraderie that comes with that, with those few. So we have a blessing with that. So with the Greg Ogles, he is with Teaching All Nations Ministry. I want to start back farther with his testimony and then tell you more about the ministry and how you can help and be involved. So, Ogle, good to have you. He spoke this morning at Sunday school and presented his work in our church, and super excited about what they get to do. And it's really interesting. In the last couple months, God's had literally 4 different ministries come by or come through us that have to do with what He's doing. And I really believe this is something big that God is doing, and we get to be a part of it. And believe God's wanting to push that a lot. But anyway, first, tell us about your beginning, upbringing, and then how you got saved.
Well, I basically was just a common, regular United States citizen, and, went to public schools, did all that stuff. We really didn't have any influence of God at all. And so we just thought we were just, going like everybody else did. And so when I got out of my home life there, I just wanted to do something really big, really, fantastic and all. So I joined the military. And when I got in the military, I was trying to be an elite soldier and did everything I possibly could that way. And did reach some pretty big goals. But a fella came up to me and asked me, we were on the way to Iran at the time, and we were the Black Hawk crew chief and all that. And he asked me, he said, well, if you died, where would you go, when you died? I had no clue, and I didn't really even want to talk about religion, but he did bring up a point. He said, if you died, where would you go? Would you be for sure that you would even know how to go to heaven? And I said, no, I don't know. I said, I don't know if I'd go. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't go to heaven, but I don't know how to get there.
Now, what year was this?
This was in 1982.
1982.
Yeah.
Going to Iran.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Well, there was a little bit going on there. It was like, if you remember, in
they'd already released the hostages.
That's right.
In 1980.
They had the issue with the Black Hawks. This is 1981, and they had the issues with the Black Hawks. We were trained in them, and they were brand new in the military. Right. We had one of the first 6. My group. I had 2 guys that worked with me, but we were one of the first 6 Black Hawk helicopters in the Army. Yeah, we changed from the Hueys, from the the Vietnam. So they took us and put us on that. But they had us on planes. They had all our helicopters, and they ended up taking us to somewhere in California.
Wow.
And dropping us off there. But it was pretty amazing. But,
so with that, you definitely, when someone says, hey, if you die today, do you know for sure you go to heaven? And we're like, oh, we're not thinking about it. You're doing this?
I mean, the pressure's on.
I don't know how many times they'd wake us up at 2 a.m, load us up, go to Pope Air Force Base, go for a jump. Man, they would fly us around for 2 or 3 or 4 hours. We're thinking, okay, all right, we're past the U.S. Okay, are we going to Cuba? Are we going to Venezuela? I mean, you're trying to think what country. We're going into Panama. And then you end up, they drop you at Normandy Drop Zone back there at Fort Bragg. But you have no idea because that 82nd Airborne, 24 hours to be anywhere in the world.
Deployment Readiness Brigade, DRB.
Yep.
And so you had to be ready to go in 2 hours.
Yeah.
And so we kept our stuff next to the door, and they'd come up and they'd say, okay, get on the planes, go to Green Ramp is what they call us.
That's it.
And we'd run down there, and we figured it would be a pretty big situation because they had us on C-5s. Mm-hmm. They had our helicopters on C-5s.
C-5 is a way bigger airplane than the C-130s.
At the time, it was the largest.
Yeah.
So, we were sleeping on our junk and everything like that, and we was in the air for like 20 hours or something like that. So we knew he was going to do something pretty good. But in this particular thing, he had just asked me, he said, would you even know how to get saved? I said, man, I don't have a clue. I don't even know what you're talking about. I said, I think old ladies go to heaven, so maybe if you just do good until you're old or something, But I had no Christian culture at all in my life, and so when he told me that, and I said, okay, go ahead. Well, all my friends on my team, I had a team, a squad, and they were all standing there, and they were all hollering, please, come over here, don't talk to that Bible guy, And I respected the guy, but he was small and skinny and everything, so in our group, it was like you didn't listen to that guy.
Right.
But he wouldn't drink and all, and he would go with us, but he would sit in the car or sit outside at the bars or something like that. But actually, a couple of years ago, my secretary found out about it, and because I told my testimony so many times, she called him, brought him in to the church, and surprised us one day for a big thing. Yeah, and he was very surprised to see that I turned out to be a pastor, because he said, out of all the people, he says, I never thought you would be a pastor, But
I got that so many times. What?
But it worked out pretty good because I turned on like that. I even told him, I said, now, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it for real. Now, we're going to go 100 miles.
All the way airborne. That's the phrase in the military. If you see anybody airborne, it's all the way. All the way. You don't do anything halfway. It's all the way. That's the phrase. Even to this day, ATW, it's all the way. So, wow.
But so
you got saved, started growing in that church, and then what? How'd you surrender to preach?
Well, right then, when in the military, that's when I met my wife. And it was one of the first prayers I ever had. He gave me a book on how to pray.
Wow.
I said, pray specifically, so I prayed for my wife.
Amen.
And found her, and that was the funny thing. I went out to eat one night. I had prayed. I said, I want a Christian girl.
Yeah.
I want a girl. I don't even care if she has a couple of kids. I said, I want to make sure that I don't miss her. So it's really got to stand out.
Wow.
So I'm there eating dinner with a lady, and it wasn't her. And she got up, went to the restroom. I went and paid the bill, and this lady come up and tapped me on the shoulder. She says, you're not going to believe this. She says, but I had a dream about you just last night. She said, this is the first time I've ever been in here. She said, I don't know why she just said, I just came to eat dinner.
Wow.
And she said, if by chance you'd like to sit down and talk. She says, matter of fact, in the dream, we got married. I was like, okay.
This is Robin.
Yeah. I was like, okay, this is standing out, brother.
Crazy woman.
Yeah, this is crazy. But she was so pretty, man. I had to go for it. She said, I'll go over here to Waffle House as soon as you're done with your date, and I'll talk to you in a minute. So I went over there. First thing out of her mouth, she says, first, I want to let you know that I'm a Christian. And she says, number two, I'm going to let you know I've already got a couple kids. My husband was killed a year ago.
Wow.
And so I said, wait a minute. I said, she's a Christian, she's got a couple kids, and this really does stand out, So I said, this is it. So right then, man, I was done. I was ready to get married, and I told her, I said, I don't believe, divorce and all that stuff. And she said, well, I don't either. So 3 months later, we were married.
Wow.
And I moved to Georgia to work on airplanes.
Yeah.
And I got called to preach at our church at a Sword of the Lord conference in '86.
Wow.
Yeah. And then went to Hyles Anderson College.
What years were you there?
I got there in '88.
Okay.
And left in '93.
Okay.
Took me 5
I thought
years.
we were there at the same time because '88 we were freshmen. I was a freshman fall of '88, and I was single, and so I didn't have anything to slow me down. So I got done in 3, and then ready to go. But I thought we were at the same time. But you were a married student with kids. You went to college.
Yeah, I went with 5 kids.
Went with 5 kids to Bible college. Wow.
And we'd had money and everything, but I also had 2 mortgages and stuff like that. So I was really afraid of the financial thing.
Right.
But for some reason, God allowed me, to really be financially blessed. I mean, and what I mean by that is He gave me a job that paid really great. I worked in the steel mills.
Wow.
And I moved up the ladder real quickly. It was all God. But
Amen.
But so through the entire time, I hired over 200 Hyles Anderson students while we were there. Yeah. And it really helped us money-wise. They paid very well.
Beautiful. So after Bible college, then what?
Yeah. Well, we graduated. We went to our first field, and that was Kentucky. And I did not know, the real background to that, but God worked it out. So we go to Kentucky. I stayed there 6 years. And then from there...
As a pastor or assistant?
As a pastor.
Okay.
Yeah. I started a church, actually, is what it was.
Okay.
They came to me and asked me, said, would you start a church? And they had talked to 5 other pastors, and none of them said they would, because it was so small a community and everything. There was no way. It was up in Hollers. I mean, it was up in coal country and all that. So, so then I got called to Canton, Illinois, and pastored there for almost 30 years.
Wow.
And so... or almost 25, and then total of 30 years.
Yeah.
So, and then I got, I was 64 years old. I said, man, I think I'm ready to kind of kick it back a little bit. Bought me an old truck, and I was going to drive all the way to California and back, and have a little time off or whatever. And then Brother Tutton passed away, and Brother Tutton is a huge example and just a wonderful Christian man. And he and my son developed this program, Teaching All Nations, to teach people in other countries, not here.
Right.
It's a different way of teaching, but it really does work for the the 101 or 135. It doesn't matter. But he passed away. I was trying to help him by giving him money and buying his computer programs and books and printings and stuff like that. But I didn't want to get really my hands dirty. I was still pastoring.
Sure.
So. But then when he passed, they called me and said, look, will you take it over? And here I am getting ready to retire. I said, oh, okay, I get it. Okay, this is why I was retiring.
Set up, here it is. Boom.
Yeah. And God got his wish, because me and my wife, we were done. A lady walked into our house when it went to sell, and it was sold in 12 hours. I mean, the lady come in and just wrote a check. Yeah, and she gave me, and she told me, she says, "We'll give you $30,000 more than what you're asking, just so I can get it." Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Twist my arm.
Yeah. So we sold our house, went into the ministry, and started this about 1.5 years ago. We've been in 8 countries, awesome. 68 churches, and seen a lot, done a lot. But the key ingredient here is that helping missionaries has always been in my heart. Mm-hmm. I've always wanted to help missionaries, and this is just I figure if I got 10 years, I'm going to give it good 10 years, all the way.
All the way?
Yeah.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Good. So where have you been? Tell us about mission trip and what God's doing there.
Yeah, Philippines. We've been to Mexico twice. We've been to India, which was a huge thing. We got major things that we could do there in India,
wow.
And then also we've been to Thailand and 2 other countries there that are creative access.
Yes, creative access. Those are
to get in where we're not supposed to be.
Yes, but amen. I had the T-shirt back from the day, and I'm not a pack rat, but I just don't get rid of anything.
Yeah, I got a problem.
So I got all my military stuff. I got all my T-shirts. So my boys found they like to go through the collector. There you go. They like to go through that stuff, and so one of them is a death from above. I said we go into exotic nations and meet exotic people and kill them.
Kill them. Yeah.
And the other T-shirt I had, it said, "Kill them all, let God sort them out." Which is a fun phrase in the military. missionary, but that's not quite biblical.
That is right on. I think it is.
Just kill them all. Let God sort them out.
You have to be different, as in willing to take circumstances. Been to Africa twice, and some places that you go to, they have nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing, absolutely nothing, and water is a concern. When other places you go, they're a large city. I've been in like Mexico City, we've been there, and then Bangkok, been there, and so everywhere, Manila.
Yeah.
Those are huge cities. They have so much to offer there. You can get one of the nicest hotels you've ever been in there for $30.
Wow.
So it depends on what you're willing to do. Go to the place that has really very little water or whatever, but when you start helping somebody and you see the light of God working in their mind, and they start getting stuff out of the Bible, it will literally change your life.
So let's talk about what you do, helping to explain Teaching All Nations. What is your purpose, goal, plan, all that?
Okay, the ultimate goal is to multiply the ministry. The more churches, the more people get saved.
Yeah.
And so the idea is to train the national so that he will reach his own people. If we can get the national trained, one of the biggest problems is when you start a church, will it still be there 2 years from now?
Right.
And that is a huge concern even in America. You start a church, you've got to work it so that it'll work. Well, when you start churches in another country, it'll disappear. And it has to do with training the pastor, the next missionary or the leader of that church and the workers. If they get some good, solid training. I know I needed it.
Yeah.
So absolutely. I know they do. I was raised in the Bible Belt, but I still didn't have, the right training to be a pastor. But and I often wondered why God would use me, because I'm not a missionary. But that's exactly what we're doing. We're reproducing pastors.
Absolutely.
And so I can see why he did that in our lives. So we go there, we give them a conference. They get their pastor friends to come, and then that way together they can work together to get a college or a Bible institute so that they can train their own people.
Awesome.
And they have a lot of young people. I mean, most every missionary has a ton of young people, and so they need training.
I was amazed being in the Philippines and in Africa on mission trips, and to see the places that I was at when that 17, 18, 19, 20, whatever-year-old man surrendered to preach. He immediately moved into the church, and they had a room dormitory, which is just mats on the floor.
That's all it is.
They moved into the church, and they did everything at the church.
Right.
Anything was going on, they set up, they helped, they built, went sewing, ran the routes, did everything, and then had a Bible institute to be able to teach them. And it was amazing 3 years what you learned, because as you know, you learn by doing.
Right.
The best learning model.
That's the practical
That's
side,
what Jesus did. You learn by doing. I've asked 100 pastors plus this question. It's like, okay, out of everything you've done, college training, where did you learn the most about the ministry? And without hesitation, they all say, in the ministry.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, and our Bible colleges are good ones. We have classwork during the day, and then the weekend you have ministries to work in. Those are our good ones. The bad ones just have classroom, and they get out of there not having a clue what to do. But these people in the Bible institutes, because they do everything with the church, when they got 3 years of Bible institute, give them the knowledge, make sure they know the doctrine, so they're not going to be swayed when the Calvinist comes by or the Charismatic comes by.
That's
they
exactly
know that doctrine, but then they're ready to go because they've done everything. They've already been through it. They've worked with that pastor on all those things, and honestly, they leave many times more trained than our guys are.
Right.
I mean, I went to, I think, a great Bible college. I was there at a great time. I was in the youth ministry, worked with Jeff Owens, in the Bible clubs, and so I went to be a youth pastor. And as a youth pastor, there's so many things like, okay, we need you to run a camp. I've never done that. We need you to run a youth revival. I've never done that, But that intern that worked in that church for 3 years, oh yeah, we've done that 3 times. I know how to do that.
Well, the key thing about that is that the guy, he is in the missionaries church, and so he's looking for training. One of the things, missionaries don't have a whole lot of time or a whole lot of money. So we give it to them for free. Then we do the training and we give them the curriculum free. Yeah. But here's where the key thing is that there's not as many distractions there for them.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Focus.
But then they get it. So if they're working there with the ministry, like many of the people we see, they have people living right on site, and all they do need is a mat or a place to hang their stuff.
Yeah.
But on top of that, what they do is like here, we have a college curriculum, and we have to add the practical side.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to train people practically, like how to do a Sunday school class, drive a bus, whatever those things, have a camp. They're already there.
They're there.
So they just need the school program. They've already doing the practical stuff.
Now, criticism, I know I've heard, okay, supporting that national guy, you know, how do you know it's going? What does he believe? What does he really do? But you guys work underneath the authority of that missionary that proves and approves them. Is that correct?
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
We send the help to the missionary, and then that way he can help them. If, let's just say, they fall away or they don't do what they're supposed to do, I can't see them.
Yep.
But they can, and the missionary knows which guy is most capable of carrying on.
So you're not against American missionaries, right?
I don't know. No, I'm for the missionary. Matter of fact, that's what I'm trying to do. That's one of the criteria we use when we go somewhere. We get calls every day from people in country.
Yeah.
But I always ask, the first question is, do you live near a U.S. missionary? If you do, then we can help you. And the reason being is because we want to help the missionary. That's the whole purpose.
That's good.
Yeah.
It really is a big deal. I don't know if you've heard of this, but I've heard of on the mission field that, you know, they're trying to raise money. They're trying to get people to come visit them and, you know, come to our church and help us. But behind the church is a little shed, and it has all different signs in it depending on what group is coming.
Which group, yeah.
So it's Methodist
I've heard
Church,
that.
Baptist, you know. And so this way, you know, it's not that way. And as you know, everyone has tried to, you know, there's scams out there. Sometimes we get too skeptical of the scams, we won't help people. And so what we want to do, and like this, is to protect from the scam, but still not use that excuse that we're not going to do something for God.
That's exactly right, because I have seen those. I have seen that even in the U.S. You know, and the idea here is if you put it in the missionary's hand, he's able to know what he could do. But let's just say one of the nationals changes something there. One of the things that I look for is the pastor is the guy that he's helping the people.
Right.
His drive is going to make him who he is. Yeah, they're going to try to be nice to you while you're visiting. But you know as good as I do, as a pastor, I'm looking for certain things.
Right.
Well, one of them that I saw just a month and a half ago, he's been in jail 3 times. He's not doing it for the money.
Yeah.
You know, he's got 8 young people living in his house.
The missionary got put in jail over nothing.
And so, you know, and then the people over in India, when we were there visiting them, there's a group of them all work together. And as soon as they heard we were having a meeting, we started 25, and before 3 days were up, we had 80. And these missionaries coming out of the closet were, you know, and we weren't giving them anything. They were just coming for the teaching and the preaching, and they had higher standards than anything, man.
Wow.
They were tough. Yeah.
What a blessing that is. So give us some numbers financially. And again, we're for the missionary, but how much is it going to cost to train a missionary through Bible college and through deputation and raising their support? Have you figured out how much to get a missionary to the field, what that's going to cost?
Well, we can always start a Bible college for about $12,000 to $15,000. We'll go there. We do everything. We stay there for weeks. We'll get everything going so that they can have a Bible college. Each individual set of teaching material is about $300, but we're not really worried about that. We give that to them. We raise that money on our own. But each person, it takes 3 years. They go through the Bible, 7,000 different Bible verses, and they get taught properly how to use the Bible. Not just, you know, tests,
right?
But they're rightly dividing the word of truth.
My comparison was how much it cost to train an American missionary, 4, 5, 6 years in Bible college, 3, 4 years of deputation, and then to get them to the field versus being able to train a national who already knows the language and the culture. He's not going to quit and go home. He's there.
You can usually get a missionary in a foreign country for about $150 to $300 a month. It's unbelievable what they can do for little. So if we train them there, they don't have to pay for college, because most of them are making $3 to $4 a day for labor, and they work 6 and sometimes 7 days a week.
Right.
So especially in the creative access nation, they don't have any money. They just can't buy a book. They can't. So, you know, it's a difficult situation.
Yeah.
So a regular missionary, he's going to be on deputation field for 2 years at least. I've been on it for a year and a half, and I'm about halfway.
Yeah.
Not nearly, but halfway of what I need. But every time somebody sends us money, I go see a country because I've got a list, and we're working on it. You know.
Awesome. So where rubber meets the road, if somebody wanted to help you or had questions for you or wanted to partner with you or wanted to help put a college and with a missionary in a church and building and things there, where would they go? What would they do? Is there an online place to give? If they wanted to talk to you, had questions, give everyone that.
Well, we have teachingallnations.net. That's our webpage.
Teachingallnations.net. Write that down.
We also have a Facebook, which is also the same, teachingallnations.net. But then also, I would say that FBMI has been very, very helpful to us. And I have a number, it's 9900. If you want to help that way, that you could call them and make sure that, we're the kind of...
So you are sending, FBMI is your mission board,
well,
is that right?
They have been helpful to us. We're kind of like a separate entity. They've just been very helpful to us.
Redheaded stepchild.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's exactly who
They're
I am.
helping
Anybody
you.
that wears a red beret is redheaded stepchild,
You knew that,
but we're very comfortable. But they've been so helpful. Dr. Bushy has just been an instrument, just a great person to help us. But the idea is, we got a container that's going to India. It's very expensive to get stuff over there. We got things we want to do for people in Mexico. We got a guy in India that preaches every single evening of his life, but he has to walk or borrow a car every time he does. So I want to get him a vehicle of some kind, and so we got 4 projects that are ongoing, but we have 2 more that we'd like to add, and each one of them will be about $15,000. So
awesome,
yeah,
that's great. Well, what an amazing thing. When the Bible says you should be like a tree planted by the rivers of waters, it's not just picking a fruit, it's planting a tree.
Yes,
and I compare with what you're doing with that. You're not just fruit, but you're planting a tree that can bear fruit literally for decades, and then that tree, the seed in that, can go to that next town and be planted a tree there too. And so the multiplication aspect of this is amazing. And what happens if a country closes and Americans have to leave? Guess who's still there?
Well, we just learned that in pandemic, that all the missionaries had to leave, and most of the nationals didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
So they fell apart. And so I had a national call me and say, look, you need to train us so that this won't happen again.
Yeah.
And
that's big.
The statement or buzzword that people use now is this. They say, there is no success without a successor. We use that here. I'm sure one of your young boys are going to take over for you maybe one day. We probably dream of that, Yeah. But the idea is if they're not trained and ready, your ministry stops when you leave, So that's what the idea is, to train somebody to follow you.
That's big. It's discipling. It's you get those, you train them, and then they go on. Just reading... and use it this morning, but it's in my little bulletin article, but it talked about, here Jesus upbraided these 11 for their unbelief and then told them, go in all the world and preach the gospel to every creature, And so, and they did. And they did. Obviously, Jesus knew they would, but when you look at that ragtag bunch of faithless disciples, struggling with everything, and look what happened. These who have turned the world upside down have come hither also. And to see what they did, and boy, to train a group of people like this, what they can do to help us reach the world.
And they got the heart for it. Yeah. They want to serve God so bad,
Yeah. Just give them some tools. So
yes,
awesome.
Sir.
Anything I didn't ask you that you would like to share or tell or direct people to? Anything that's open-ended?
A couple of things that I notice is that one thing is the missionaries usually have children, and they are instrumental in helping their dad and mom in their work.
Yeah.
And it's really, really important that we take care of the missionary, but give him something so that he can do his work simple, or more simple, and then also a little bit of help so that makes things easier for them.
Awesome.
I definitely want to help those young people that their mom and dad are serving on a farm field, and they're outstanding. They use instruments, they do the sewing, they do everything. And I'm very, very, wanting to be helpful to them as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Great stuff. Well, thank you.
Yes, sir.
We're friendly, we're serving our own way, doing our own thing. I know you, you know us. And when I first heard what you're doing, I think I reached out to you and said, hey, when can you come? Or you reached out to me like, man, let's do this thing. So it took us a while to get here, even though we're only about an hour and a half away from each other. So I'm super excited about what God has for you. And as we know, only heaven will be able to reveal everything that happens. We serve here, we see blindly or darkly, but boy, getting to see the Lord face to face one day and getting to see all the work of our labor one day, what that's going to be.
The investment will be worth it.
It definitely will. All right, so you heard it. Go to teachingallnations.net. Go to the Facebook page. If someone wanted to email you,
yes.
What would your email
be?
be?
Ogle, teachingallnations.net.
Okay, Ogle, Ogle, at teachingallnations.net. Okay, you can email him if you guys want to have him for a meeting. Come and teach, preach, help, support, go on a trip with him, whatever. I'm sure you'll take all that, right? Awesome. So, hey, God bless you. Thank you for listening, and do pray about what God would want you to do. It's amazing when you talk about business, you talk about return on investment, your ROI, and where can I get the most return on my investment? Investing in something like this, where you're planting a tree and the multiplication, I think would be a great way to watch God multiply that in a big way.
Sir.
So thank you, Brother Ogles. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Fundamental Baptist Podcast. If you have any questions, you can email us at thefundamentalbaptistpodcast@gmail.com.